Where are you in the world, and did you get a chance to surf today?
Yes, I'm in Huntington Beach, California, and yes, I did surf today.
Awesome. How was it?
It was small and windy, but I actually got a new longboard, and I was like, this is the perfect moment to try that board. So, yes, I personally had fun.
Awesome. Yeah, I remember when we connected, maybe one of the last times you were talking about how you'd always been a shortboarder and that longboards were scary for you, but you were considering getting one. So talk about that. What was it like to actually like why are you afraid of longboards, first of all? Because I think most people start on longboards and then they move to shortboards, but for you it was different.
Yes, it's been different because in my case, a longboard has always felt like a lot of board that I cannot control. So it's not nothing else. It's just that really I'm afraid that I'm not able to control the board, that maybe I will hit myself or others in the lineup if I cannot control this ginormous board. So for me, kind of like my my goal was always kind of like, okay, have a board that I can duck dive, that I can keep close to me and kind of like avoid crashing into other people. And little by little, I kind of like grew more curious about longboarding, and I've been really into kind of like researching about, like the classic California style of cross stepping and nose riding. Not that I'm there yet, but I got a very classic shape longboard. So I'm super happy, super excited about it. And I took it out today, and I had fun.
Awesome. Yeah, so how did you learn how to surf without using a longboard?
Well, of course, I learned on mid lengths. Yeah, it's kind of like my longest board until a couple of weeks ago was a 7.7. So I learned on, your typical mid length 7.6. I actually still have that board and still have fun on it. So, yes, that's kind of like where I started. And then, kind of like little by little, I transitioned to shorter boards instead of going long. And now I'm going long.
Nice. Well, I always think it's interesting to hear people's surf stories. And I remember you telling me a little bit about when you were young, growing up, you actually started surfing a little bit. Can you remind me of that story?
Yeah, so actually so growing up, I'm from Colombia. I grew up in Colombia, and I grew up in an amazing, beautiful place up in the mountains where kind of like we produce the coffee that you drink. Hopefully if you drink Colombian coffee. And but sadly, that's far from the ocean. And Colombia is, even though we have two oceans around us, it's hard for most people who are kind of like inland to reach the ocean. It's expensive. For me and my family, it was kind of like always very expensive. So I didn't have the opportunities to go to the ocean when I was a kid. But as soon as I had the chance, I was always, I don't know why, maybe because of pop culture, like you start watching movies and like American TV shows and you see surfing on pop culture. So I was like, I really want to try surfing one day. But I didn't even have money for a lesson or like to rent a board. And then when I was in my late 20s, actually, that's when I took my first surf lesson in a town called Puerto Colombia. It's nearby Barranquilla. It's on the north coast of Colombia. So this is the Atlantic Ocean. And that was it. I popped up on that first wave and I was like, I got this. Oh my goodness, this is amazing. And then like little I knew like how hard it was going to be. But yes, I never looked back after that. Yeah.
And what are the waves like in Colombia? Because I feel like it's not a place that you hear about in surf media.
No, that's a good question. And actually, I appreciate that question and kind of like the opportunity about talking a little bit more about Colombia. So we have two oceans, right? Atlantic, kind of like it's more the Caribbean Sea and the Pacific Ocean. So, of course, in terms of quality of waves, we have better waves in on the Pacific side, but it's jungle is a thick jungle and it's also not very well developed. So it's really hard to reach, even for us. In Colombia, it's kind of like hard to reach, it's more expensive, less developed. So then we have the Atlantic coast, and that's the Caribbean. That's where kind of like everybody goes to. Like Cartagena is I guess, a very well known city for tourists. And then we have inconsistent waves, but yes, there are some waves that you can surf. Mainly around Cartagena, there are some. Barranquilla, as I said, Puerto Colombia is kind of like now like the big surf town in Colombia, which is super exciting. And then going up north, you have Tayrona Park, which is very well known for tourists, but also have some interesting waves, a little bit wild to me, I think, but really good waves where people can learn and practice. But my favorite waves are definitely on the Pacific side.
And is that because like I imagine like the Atlantic being sort of wind swell, shorter period, is it beach break or are there points or reefs over there?
It's mostly beach break. I also don't know all the spots, so I know there are many spots, and there are some that are point breaks, especially north going towards Tayrona. But yeah, beach breaks, inconsistent wind swell. So sometimes if there are hurricanes, they do get swells. Um, but it's also, it depends on the day. The weather changes so quickly there that sometimes, like in the morning, you wake up and you see the waves and they look like nothing. And then it rains. And then after the rain, it's clean and you can go and surf. So yeah, very inconsistent, kind of like, it's funny because when I learned to surf, I think there are still no cameras there, but also there was no forecast. So we just had to go to the beach and check it out and go for it. Um, yeah. So that's how it is on the Atlantic side.
And so thinking about comparing other Latin American countries where the Pacific coasts are very developed, you know, that's there's hotels and tourism and surfing. And why do you think Colombia does not have a developed Pacific coast?
Holly, that's a complicated question. And Colombia is just a complicated country. It's a beautiful country, but sadly, we've had this history of violence, you know, war, basically a civil war that has lasted for years, ages, decades. My generation, I feel like there was a point where we said that my generation and my parents' generation, we never lived a single day of peace in our country. We never kind of like knew what that was and how living in peaceful country would look like. So of course that affects everything, you know, every single aspect of developing in a country will get affected because of course there is poverty, there is violence, there are lack of opportunities. So I don't have kind of like a specific answer for you, but it is a region that has been traditionally forgotten from kind of like the centralized, like more centralized government, right? So Colombia kind of like devoted most of their income and resources to big cities that are mostly in the center of the country or on the north coast. The Pacific coast gets like it's jungly and it's harder to have access there. And also there is where that's the coast where many ages ago, decades centuries maybe ago, the slaves that got to Colombia from Africa, when they escaped, they moved to that coast. So it is, wow, it's a very complicated history, but it's very interesting and it's beautiful. And what happened throughout the years is that, of course, because of the lack of government presence, kind of like other groups built, and got strength over there, violent and kind of like criminal groups or out of the law. So that's kind of like why that area is underdeveloped. And also, geographically, it's very, very hard to build roads there. So to go to the place where I go and surf, you have to take a plane and land into this very small airport, I'm sorry. And then you take boats to go wherever you are going to go. You cannot drive. There are no roads. So it's not like in Costa Rica that you have roads, whatever the state, but there is a road. Now here you need to take a boat and everything. It's kind of like far. So yes, that's
So,
basically
what
how
was
it is.
that like for you growing up in a place surrounded by civil war? Like you said that your generation and your parents' generation never experienced peace. So, I am so privileged to have grown up in the US and in California where, any war that I saw was on TV or in a history book. So what was that like for you to grow up just accepting that war is reality around you? Like, did you see any of that or was it far from where you were living?
Well, I think it's interesting because it was both. So I don't know, at least in my case, I feel like when you grow up in an environment like that, you think that this is normal and you think that it's kind of like the normal daily life. And growing up, I just remember, like, I have very clear memories of listening, like my dad watching the news and me listening to the news and not understanding anything. I was like, Dad, can you explain what's a guerrilla? What is that? Why are they fighting? And for adults, it's really hard to, I mean, for me, it is still very hard to explain what happens in Colombia. It's a very, very complicated country again. So to me, kind of like growing up, it was just normal to see every day on the news that people were killing each other. And then kind of like to my little kind of like small reality, I grew up in a very small town where everybody knows everybody. And that's also kind of like a privilege because of course, it was peaceful, like among everything, but it was a kind of peaceful childhood. So yes, I grew up kind of like with all the opportunities that other kids had, kind of like play on the streets with your neighbors and just like walk to school. But yeah, there were times where we saw violence in our town and kind of like everybody would be like, oh, so and so got killed, but who knows what they did, and like let's just get inside the house and close the door and don't talk about it. So that's how kind of like I grew up. And then when I was a little bit older, I did move to first Bogota and then Medellin to go to school, to university. And that was still the 90s, late 90s. And that's when I saw kind of like the other side of things. Kind of like there was a night, I remember clearly, we were getting dressed to go outside in Medellin and kind of like, just do what college kids do and have fun and grab a beer. And someone called to our house and said, do not go out. There was a bomb at the park right now. And that was one of the last big bombs in Colombia. I don't know if you and your listeners are aware of this, but the 90s were really hard in Colombia because there was like this war with drug dealers that escalated, especially in the big cities, and we had big bombs going on like every other weekend. So I remember that, and kind of like you didn't want to go out with your friends at night because you never knew if there was going to be a bomb or maybe like someone, I don't know, shooting and killing someone else. So it was sad, but at the same time, again, for me, it was kind of like the reality that I grew up in. So it's kind of like hard to explain how it becomes your daily life, basically.
Yeah, that's interesting. And so you mentioned that the 90s was a time when there was a lot of drug violence, and then give us a little like update on like what happened now. Like they're not at war now, right? And it has the whole drug, I don't know, do they call them cartels there, or is that more Mexico? Like what is the current situation as far as like safety and security in the country?
Okay, so this is difficult for me to kind of like talk about. First of all, because I don't live in Colombia anymore, so I need to be aware, and I kind of like acknowledge that I'm not living there my daily life. I know, of course, because my family, they're all still there, and I go there very frequently. And I know that it's not an easy situation still. Yet, yes, there was a peace agreement signed a couple of years ago that I think by now we all are aware that it didn't work as well as we were expecting. It's not that after the peace agreement, everything was, peaceful. It was not actually. In some places, the situation is basically the same. In terms of drugs, as far as I know and I'm aware, things have not changed for the good. We still have the same situation. It's very different because we don't have kind of like those big bosses, that most people know these days because of Netflix and popular culture, Pablo Escobar, and kind of like in those times, everybody was like, okay, that's Pablo Escobar, or this is the cartel de Cali, like Cali cartel or Norte del Valle. But these days, it's like no one knows their names. Of course, there are people that are well known because they are being searched for, or they are kind of like the leaders of some groups. But yeah, it has changed, but it's still not what it's still not the country that we wish we had, that we think we deserve, and it's not the peaceful country that we all kind of like dream with yet. Hopefully we will be there one day.
But as far as you going and visiting your family or, tourism, those kind of things are happening sort of in their own little microcosm. And it's still like you feel safe and confident to be like, come to Colombia and go surfing. It's all fine.
Yes. Yes. So it's very interesting. Thank you for that question, because actually Colombia is like, we're having this boom with tourism from everywhere. I just was there 1 month ago, and I could not believe my eyes. I was like, oh my goodness, there are people here from everywhere. I went to Medellin to spend a weekend there, and I saw people from the United States, from Europe, from other countries that I have no idea where, because I was like, I don't know what they're speaking. So that was really, really cool to see a big diversity, like, of tourists coming into the country. And I feel like they feel safe. Every time I go there, I feel safe. Of course, you have to be aware that there is a current situation there, but and you want to stay in the more tourist areas and be very careful. But yes, like, tourism is having a big boom right now, and I love that. I love seeing people from everywhere going to my country, and I'm super happy every time I meet someone here and they say, oh, I've been in Colombia and I had like the best time ever, or I met really nice people. So yes, that makes me happy.
Yeah, I would say it's a lot like Nicaragua, which obviously has some political struggles, but is still a super, safe place. And even places in the US. I mean, if you talk about, the chances of getting caught by a bullet, that can happen at the grocery store or at an elementary school or at a concert or anywhere. And yet I feel like certain countries like Nicaragua or Colombia have these reputations that people just think, oh my gosh, it's so dangerous. Like there's no way that I would go there. So I think it's good to show the other sides that all countries have their, you got to be smart, right? You don't want to go in certain places by yourself late at night or whatever, but there are ways to go and experience the place, even if it does have a complicated past.
Yes, and especially these days, like cities like Bogota or Cartagena, those are cities where you can go and they're beautiful. You will feel like it's not, I don't know, it's maybe not what most people expect because those cities are developed. They have a myriad of things to do. You can go to concerts, you can go to bars, you can go to really good restaurants, you can go to these amazing museums. Like in Bogota, we have the Gold Museum, which is amazing if you go ever, like go visit that museum. And Medellin too, they have big concerts, they have parks, they have so many things to do. So yes, this is definitely an invitation for everyone to go and visit Colombia if you can.
Right. Well, talk more about your recent trip. You were doing some, remind me, what did I see on Instagram? Why now I'm drawing a blank. You were doing something with surfing there.
Yes.
Remind me.
Okay. So yeah. So thank you. Yes, my recent trip was mostly a visit to this place on the Pacific side called Nuki. Nuki is, if you look on the map, is North Pacific of Colombia. They have really good waves there. They also have whale watching these days, and we saw plenty of whales. But the main reason why I went is because I've been in touch with the local surfers, and we've been trying to help the local community kind of like get more organized and yeah, support their local club. So the place where I go to specifically is called Termales, and they have a surf club for boys and girls and adults too. And they have this beautiful, amazing wave right there that I love and I fear too. But we're trying to support the kind of like development of surfing there locally, and we sponsored a small contest for local clubs on that wave. And it was the first contest ever on that wave. Of course, it was not only me, it was like a big group, community supporters who came and chime in to support and help creating this amazing event.
Awesome. That must have felt good to see that.
Yeah, well, I was not there to see the event, sadly. I went afterwards, but I did see, of course, photos and everything. And yes, it was amazing to know that we finally, that there is finally a group there and have enough support to create that contest. There is a lot happening right now in terms of surfing in Colombia, but most of what happens on the Atlantic side of things, right? Like the Atlantic coast, Cartagena, Barranquilla, Parque Tayrona, those places get most of their contests. There is actually a national surf circuit in Colombia, where the surfers in Colombia have opportunities to compete throughout the year, but none of those contests are organized on the Pacific side. So that's why we wanted to start very locally with the local kids and kind of like try to organize something that we can show and say, hey, this is possible. You can organize something here. And it goes kind of like further than just competing. Surfing has been this tool for local kids in this community to see life differently. And you know very well, I like throughout Surf with Amigas, you have seen millions of experience of women and people around the world saying that their lives changed because of surfing, right? We keep hearing that story over and over again. And I think it's true, and I think it can go further than kind of like just, okay, it changed my life, it changed kind of like my appreciation of the ocean, or like how who I am as a person. In this case, it can change a community, and that's kind of like what we're aiming for. So if you look on the map of Colombia and you look for Nuquí, it's kind of like this little town south of Panama, kind of like on the Pacific side, and you can only get there via an airplane from Medellin. These days, I believe there are other cities interested in sending flights to Nuquí, but currently you go to Medellin, you take a plane to Nuquí. It's only 40 minutes, 30-minute plane. But when you land there, you land in a totally different world. It's this place where nothing works as we think the world works, right? There is electricity some hours on during the day. Um, Thus, of course, they don't have like meat products or dairy products. So the food there is very different too. Kind of like the way people live is very different because transportation is difficult too. So you kind of like have to plan everything. When you go there, there are hotels, and they're very beautiful hotels. I invite anyone who wants to go to check it out. And you, like, let's say you book your stay with a hotel, the hotel comes to pick you up at the airport, which is kind of like 1 block away from the pier or the jetty. So you kind of like you board your boat right there where you land, and then you drive, like you're on a boat for 30-40 minutes, 1 hour, depending on where you're going, and you're in the middle of the jungle. It's like, it's really, really quiet, really peaceful. It's a different lifestyle. Everybody knows everybody. And it's a very interesting and beautiful community, but at the same time, it's a community that lack opportunities, especially for kids, right? There are schools, there are small schools, and kind of like the basic education is there. But then if the kids want to do something else with life, they will have to go to a city. They will have to move to Medellin, Bogota, or even leave the country, right? Or if they are going to stay locally, well, they know kind of like what are the few opportunities that they have. For girls is also a challenge because there is kind of like teenage pregnancy. So that, of course, it's going to affect the opportunities that you will have in life to do something else. So through surfing, what this group of people are doing is that they created a surf club. The first surf club was created in 2012 with about 30 kids, boys and girls, with 5 surfboards. So still to today, they have way more surfers than surfboards. And of course, with everything that I said, you can imagine that it is very hard to bring a surfboard there. This last time I brought one of my boards and I left it there as a gift for the club. They still have about 45 to 50 kids and only 15 surfboards. So those are the things that we're trying to kind of like fix, right? So hopefully each kid will have at least one board that they can, use at any time, because even though this is the Pacific side and they have more constant waves, the waves are not 100% constant. So whenever there is a good swell, they will be like, I want to surf. And they're like, we only have 10 boards. So who's going first? And you have to wait. And you can imagine if you're a kid and you're frothing, you just want to go. So there are still some kids that just take the wood boards from the beds and they just jump on the ocean with that and have fun. But to give you also an example of how kind of like limited the opportunities are still, the place where we had the contest is a place that I, as a Colombian person, I first saw on a YouTube video, because I want to say one of the surf brands, they were sponsoring some Brazilian surfers, and they took these surfers to this wave in Colombia to train. And if I'm, and this may not be true, but I think it was Italo Ferreira or one of the big names in surfing in Brazil who went to that trip. So I saw that video and I was like, is that wave in Colombia? Are you kidding me? Like, where is this? So I started kind of like making my research and I was like, I need to go. But you know me, I'm not a big wave surfer. That like I'm not like a surfer that can get barreled or anything. So I trained mentally and physically to go to that wave for years. And I finally went and I saw it and I took one wave. I rode it once and I was like, this is it. Take me back to the boat. This is not like it's over my level, but I saw it and it's a beautiful, amazing, world class wave. It's a left. And the kids in the town have not seen the wave. The kids from the club have never had the opportunity to go and surf that wave because they have to take a 30 or 40-minute boat and gas is very expensive. So you cannot just take 20 kids to go and surf that wave. Also, you don't have, I mean, you need at least like someone doing lifeguard and kind of like some safety, kind of like minimum, right? Like some minimum safety there. So it took a while for us to be able to organize the event, but mainly for the people locally. Santiago is a leader there. He's a boy that I met here in Huntington Beach. When he came to the world, it was the under 18 World Cup of Surfing, the ISA
ISA, yeah,
Championship.
World Games maybe.
Exactly.
Hang on, I'm gonna
And
close my door because it's raining
yeah,
and like it might be loud. Okay, so you met this Colombian kid when you came to Huntington for the contest.
yes. And just funny story. We had to buy him a sweatshirt because he and other kid from Colombia, he's a Colombian, African Colombian surfer, and the other kid was the only indigenous surfer from Colombia who participated. So both of them were on the beach in Huntington Beach, California, freezing. They were like freezing on the beach, and we were like, kids, you don't want to wear a sweatshirt or a jacket? And they were like, no, we don't have one. Like, we have never been cold in our lives. So we had to buy sweatshirts for them, like at the local store. And they were like, and the water is too cold. And they didn't have wetsuits because they were like, we had never been in this weather before. They had never left Colombia before. So Santiago kind of like took that experience to go back to Colombia, to his hometown, Termales, to his local surf club. And he said, things need to change. We need to do better at surfing. We have our amazing waves. We have warm water. We have the most beautiful weather and jungle right here. We need to change and organize these things. And he, for the past 5, 7 years, has been an amazing leader to the community. And he's the one who I work with when I kind of like support the contest, or whenever they need something that I can provide or that I can help with. He's kind of like my person there. He's amazing. He's an amazing gentleman now.
Awesome. And are there any young girls that are participating as well?
Yes. So actually, we at this contest, I was like, the only way I'm gonna help is if you guys have a women's division. Like, what are we talking about? You need girls. And they opened it, and they had two competitors. So of course, champion and second place. That was it. But they did it. They paddled out and they tried, and they were there with the boys, which is amazing.
That's awesome.
Mhm.
So can you describe this magical, amazing wave? That you mentioned that it was a left and that it was bigger than you wanted it to be, but tell us about it. What is it like? It's a 30-minute boat ride, and then what do you come to?
Yeah, so you go to this, it's called Cabo Corrientes, which is kind of like a bay, right? And it's a point break with this ginormous rock formation. Um, and it's very similar to that place in Nicaragua where we went the other day, right? Like you park the boat and that's the channel, and then you have to paddle a little bit in to actually see the wave. So I remember that when we parked the boat, I was like, oh, this is small. It looks fine. So I paddled in a little bit with another local boy and my other local guide, who is the owner of one of the hotels there. And we paddled in, and when I actually got a better view of the wave, I was like, like when you feel like, or at least me, I feel like this little like coldness in my stomach, and I'm like, oh, that's a little bit bigger than what I think I could serve. So I was like, I'm here. I'm gonna just kind of like, I know where the channel is. I know where the boat is. If a set comes, I'm just gonna paddle to the right, and that's it. So I set up in the lineup, and then it was just three of us with this beautiful wave. The only thing there is that, of course, there are rocks in the inside. So, I mean, if it's not for your skill set, basically can be very dangerous, right? So my guide kind of like, he took on a bigger wave, and I saw him and I was like, oh, maybe that's not for me. But the other kid, the local kid, he was more on the shoulder. So when he took on a wave, I was like, I can do that. That doesn't look that big. So I paddled a little bit more like towards the inside, and I saw in your words a cute wave. I was like, this is me. So I paddled hard, looked to my left, popped up, and that board was just like, I don't know, I felt like I was just falling like down like a big building. It was like on the on the water, kind of like doing this. And I just hold to my rail and looked left, and I was like, I got this. I'm riding this wave. It was not getting barreled or anything, but it was a beautiful wall, kind of like face to my left. And then kind of like when I stabilized the board, I was like, oh, I can maybe like cut back or something here. So I was like, ooh, little cut back and way back, and kind of like finished my wave. And I was like, yay, I did it. Now let's paddle back to the boat. I was like, this is it. And when I started paddling out, I saw a ginormous set coming, like big lines in the horizon. So I was like, Anna, you better paddle with all that you have to that boat right now. So I paddle, like duck dived, but everything was fine. I just saw the waves, and really, for someone who has like more skills than me, like someone like you, you will have a lot of fun, especially it's a left and you like lefts. So yes, beautiful. Of course, it is hard to get there, and maybe like you're gonna do all of this just to ride that wave for a morning or an afternoon. But then there are other things to do there. You can see the whales, and you can, I don't know, take a walk in the jungle and enjoy the place. So yeah, that's what it is.
And talk about, so the wave that the kids are surfing is not that wave, but where are they surfing?
No, it's not that wave. They surf in thermales. Waves break in front of their houses, basically, right? So there is a beach break there, and they can, depending on the swell, they can do longboarding or shortboarding or anything in between. And depending on the months. So it's kind of like also very interesting because waves are more constant there, but are not constant the whole year round. So you need to know what months you want to go to surf. And of course, for locals, they know kind of like what's working in what month. So the kids surf usually after school. You will see them walking on the beach in the mornings with their beautiful uniforms and like backpacks. They go to school, and then at 1 p.m. they come back on the beach, walk, change, get to their houses, of course, like have lunch, change, and go and surf. So that's kind of like the life of the local kids surfing. And the other day I was asking, like, do you guys all surf here? And they were like, of course, obviously. What's that question? I'm like, oh, I'm sorry. So you all surf? And they were like, absolutely, we all surf. And actually, what I learned is that it's it's part of the culture because they live. This is the ocean. The ocean is their lives. So their parents either fish or drive a boat for transportation for tourists, or goods. And moms kind of like, they also fish, they also work with the boats, or they kind of like, like their food come from the ocean. So for the kids, the ocean is everything, and they are in the ocean all the time. So even if they are not surfing with a surfboard, like what we think of surfing when we say surfing, they are kind of like playing on the waves, or they bring whatever piece of wood they have and try with that to ride the wave. So yes, it's a really cool place.
Awesome. So we're talking about kids mostly, but what about when the kids grow up? Is it one of those things? I assume that your friend Santiago is an adult now, or a young adult anyway, and is still surfing, but in general, are there any older kids that surf, or as they get to a certain age, then they become fishermen and they're working or whatever else?
No, there are plenty of older kids and adults now who surf. Um, the first person who kind of like brought surfing there, he is still an avid surfer, and they basically, and this is why it is so important to see surfing there more as a cultural shift and a new opportunity, because what they can do is that some of them are teaching. So tourists come there. Local tourists from Colombia, they usually go there to see whales or just to be at the beach. It's a beautiful beach by the jungle. So they just do that. But once they are there, they can get interested in other activities. So the kids say, hey, I can teach you surfing. And I have couple of boards. They do have some foamy boards there for teaching. So that's an additional income. They can teach surfing. They can train the kids. They can also drive tourists or surfers to the good spots. Because this is that big wave. That's not the only good spot there. There are other spots, and there are other spots for longboarders. There is like this beautiful ride that I surfed also once. It's called Hurubida, and they can take you there, right? Because they know where to go and what the conditions are going to be like. Because it's hard, of course, to get kind of like an idea of the forecast. So they know that. So they are more like local guides, and that's an additional source of income for them. So yeah, they don't stop surfing, or they haven't, at least this generation.
Yeah, that's great. Because I notice even in Nicaragua, where it seems like it's a little bit more developed. Obviously, there are surf camps and more going on in our little community in Nicaragua. But even there, I feel like I've watched now a few generations of surfers get into it. And then as they're teenagers, they're really into it. And then they get into their later 20s and they seem to just stop surfing. Like there are a few that will still surf, that'll show up here and there and surf, but it seems to be, they get girlfriends or they get jobs or, all the things that us as humans end up doing and get responsibilities as we get older that then will often pull them away from surfing.
Yeah, and of course, I believe that that will happen too. Um, Also, when we were talking about opportunities, right? They don't have the same opportunities if they stay in the town as if they go to a big city in Colombia and like more the interior big cities, the capital or whatever. So of course, those people will have to stop surfing. And also until now, surfing is not seen as a real opportunity for anyone. Santiago may be a big exception in Colombia, um, on the Pacific side. On the Atlantic side, again, the scene is very different, and it's also very exciting. There are more women surfing in the Atlantic side right now than ever before. They are organized. They have a women's collective in Barranquilla, and they are kind of like pushing each other to compete and to kind of like keep growing as pro surfers, hopefully one day. But the Pacific side is not there yet. So that's kind of like what we're trying to see if we can accomplish. I kind of like include myself, but of course it's more them to kind of like try to make of surfing a way of life for this generation. So yeah, let's see. I think it's very exciting times because in 10 or 20 years we will see hopefully that things have changed, and that surfing is adopted as a lifestyle and also as an opportunity, because so far parents are still a little bit reluctant, still kind of like they're like, oh no, I don't want my kids to just surf. I want them to go to school, and if we can, we will send them to a city. So yeah, let's see what happens.
Speaking of competition, didn't you compete in a contest in Colombia or representing Colombia? How did that end up go? I remember you talking about training for the contest, but I don't think I ever heard how it went.
Yeah, well, it didn't go like amazingly fine, but okay, it was an amazing experience. And actually, the reason why I joined the competition was because all of this that I'm doing, I'm like, I want to learn more, right? So I was like, I think the best way for me to actually understand what's happening with surfing in Colombia is if I join one of the contests. So I joined and I had tremendous fun. It was amazing because it was on the Atlantic coast. So the waves were small and kind of like perfect for me. And the ladies there are amazing. Holly, they are like the camaraderie, like it's really good because, of course, kind of like there are more men surfing than women, so women have to kind of like support each other, and that's how I met most of the women who surf in Colombia and who want to compete and who are like taking this seriously. Throughout that experience, I put a jersey on and I was like, let's do it. And they were like, yes, oh, who are you? And now we're friends and everything. So yes, I loved that experience.
And were they mostly younger? Like were they like teenagers? Did they see you as the crazy old lady coming in,
Of course.
or what was that like?
No, well, there are some teenagers. There are some adult and kind of like older women too. It's actually very inclusive because there
Nice.
are not too many women, so it's a very inclusive group so far. Of course, the girls who are kind of like competing for Colombia right now are younger, of course, kind of like the ones that are representing Colombia on international competitions. They are younger and they also kind of like have had the opportunity to travel or like or even to live in other countries. So that's kind of like a different like a totally different group of young girls that are competing very seriously to represent Colombia and to become pros. But the locals, for the local contests, are amazing. It's such a beautiful and inclusive group of women. They even organized this group, the El Colectivo Femenino de Surf, and you can check them out on Instagram. And yes, it's really supportive. It's a really supportive team, and I loved that experience. And I actually hope that I can go back and compete one day again in Colombia.
It would be cool to get that crew of women to go surf that wave that you're talking about, like to organize like an all women's trip of those shredders or the friends that you made that were competing of all ages, and say, hey, let's do this, like let's go and go surf that wave. That would be incredible.
That would be awesome. And I think that that's the goal for next year. Again, it's hard. It's hard even for the women who live, let's say, in Barranquilla, in Cartagena, in Santa Marta, which is the Atlantic side of Colombia. It's even hard for them to go to the Pacific coast. It's expensive. You need to take one plane from Barranquilla to Bogota, another one from Bogota to Medellin, and another one from Medellin to Nuki.
And how far is it? Like, how long of a trip? My geography in Colombia is not great. I need to look at a map. But like from this Atlantic coast surf scene to get to, I can't remember the name of it. This place that you're talking about in
Yeah,
the
Nuki. Mhm.
side. So like, you take 3 flights, but like, how long are they? The last one is pretty short. It's only like 30 minutes, and then
Yeah.
there's like a boat. But like, then from there, from Medellin to Bogota is.
It's about 45 or an hour. Like all of our flights in Colombia are like 1 hour
Right.
maximum.
But it's
It's
just
not,
still like the cost of having to
it's
get
the
the multiple
cost.
plane tickets. Yeah. Okay.
Yes, yes, it is the cost. Definitely, you could go like in a weekend and go and surf, but it's the cost of doing that that's really prohibiting for local surfers to move more, and that's also kind of like why surfing is still in early stages in Colombia, because it's hard for people there to travel and to go and search for better waves and train in better conditions. So yeah.
Well, that would be the dream, though. I love like that imagery of imagining this group of Colombian women showing up to go surf the big wave together.
Yeah,
That'd be cool.
hopefully if things work out well, next year can be the year where we do a women's only, maybe festival surf contest, um, in a really good wave in Colombia. Can be that one or can be any of the others. But yeah, in a really good quality wave, Colombians surfing good quality waves in Colombia. That would be the dream.
So cool. Awesome. Um, what else do you want to talk about? You want to talk about your bathing suits, swimwear? Because
Sure.
yeah, let's talk about it.
Well, I think it's appropriate because basically everything that I've been talking about today with surfing in Colombia, it's through that brand. So 2 years ago, I started a very small swimwear brand, and it's basically it was started after kind of like a convergence of my dreams. Like I like creativity, and for me, having my own brand was a goal, a dream. But I also kind of like I was wondering what else can be possible throughout this brand, right? And for me, with like my life story and knowing that I got into surfing really late in life because I didn't have the opportunity you know, to get into it earlier. So I was like, I will try to change that for some girls in Colombia and hopefully support surfing in Colombia. So basically, the brand has allowed me to participate more and to have more an active voice and say, hey, if I sell a couple of swimsuits, I can support this contest. I can support this surfer who wants to go and compete, or who wants to train a little bit more, or who wants to get a new board. So that's the idea behind it. And yeah, I'm kind of like excited. It's my side gig, but a very, very exciting side project for me.
And what's it called?
It's called Olana, Olana.
And tell us about it. Like, what you did not have a background in fashion or producing swimwear, so what was it like to get into that?
The swimwear industry is oversaturated. It's a very oversaturated market. We all know that, but it's fun. So and it's a very interesting industry. So what I'm doing is, my background is in marketing, and I had the beautiful opportunity to work in a very small swimwear brand that doesn't exist anymore. But I did some marketing projects for them, and I loved it. I was like, this is fun. Like, I love everything that I'm doing for this brand. So I was like, oh, maybe I can start my own. And I found a factory in Medellin who specializes in swimwear. It's women owned, and they have really good quality. So I'm producing in Colombia, selling mostly here in California. To me, it's like the combination of my two worlds, kind of like living in California, and also having the appreciation of what this beautiful place is, and the surf culture here. It's like California is what made, I think, the surf what it is right now. So beautiful, kind of like, for me, a beautiful opportunity to be here, connected with so many other women who surf, and kind of like try to offer products that they would wear, because it's hard to find, kind of like, to me, it's hard to find swimwear that you want to wear, not only for surfing. So and that you feel comfortable, and it's good quality, and it's also a nice brand with a nice story behind it. So yeah, I've been selling for 2 years now, and most of my profits, and part of just my own money, goes to supporting surfers, female surfers. The goal is also to support female surfers here in California. I feel like that can be a totally different conversation, but we also need some more diversity here, and that can be a good thing to do.
Yeah, awesome. It's I always love hearing the story of people that are just passionate about something, and even though it is a saturated market and it's this huge learning curve, are like, no, but I want to do this because it brings me joy, and to hear that you're also doing good with it just takes it to that next level. That's awesome.
Yeah, it is a very hard, and kind of like, it's hard to learn how to do well, especially swimwear. I didn't know, like, it is hard to do well, because it can fit well me, it can fit me perfectly, but then the next person, of course, we all have different bodies. So hard to produce, hard to learn how to do well, but um, exciting, and definitely, hopefully, more things to come in terms of other products and other projects, and kind of like expanding the brand to be more like a women surfers community, I guess.
That sounds cool. Yeah, because are there still are you active in that women's surf club still? Is that still going? Wahine Kai or
Yes. Yes. So you're talking about Wahine Kai, which is a women's only surf club that started in Huntington Beach, and has expanded to other places. They do have chapters in other places around the United States, and it's a beautiful community. I love it because I feel like I've met most of my surf friends through Wahine Kai. Yes, I'm very thankful for Wahine Kai, and it's still growing. Um, it's growing tremendously. Yes, it's beautiful.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah, if anybody's listening to this and you live particularly in the Huntington Beach or Orange County area and are looking for a community of women to hang out with when you're in California, Wahine Kai is a great one. And then if you need some swimwear, then Olana is your swimwear brand. And if you're looking for a very adventurous travel destination, then I think we have a new one on our list too. It's super exciting. I know we had actually you that randomly, I think the place that you stayed had reached out to us about doing a retreat there. I remember sending you the website and being like, "Do you know these guys? Are they legit?" And we actually, kind of looked into could we do a retreat there, and it seemed like the facilities that they had didn't quite fit what we need to actually do a retreat there, but it is like on my personal list to go and check out. I'd love to go explore. You got to let me know when you're going next time and we'll see if we can connect.
Oh, we should go together. And I can see that. I can see that it is difficult for someone like you to organize a retreat there. Um, it will be kind of like a big challenge, but definitely if you want to go, let me know. And yes, I still go with them, with the same people. And if
Yeah, what's it called?
anyone out,
What's the
it's
name of the
they're
place?
called El Vijo, Elvijo. It's El Vijo Surf Bungalows, and Santiago works there. He's the
Okay, nice.
captain of the boat, and he will drive you around to the best surf spots for your abilities. That's for sure. So, yes. And if anyone out there listening to this podcast wants to know anything about Colombia and wants to connect, feel free to connect. I would love to just talk and answer any questions about surfing in Colombia or in Huntington Beach or Wahine Kai. Yes.
Awesome. I love it. Yeah, we will link to all of your information in our little whatever the description situation so that people that are interested in hearing more can connect and hear all about it. But thank you so much for sharing and also enlightening me a little bit on some of the history and what it was like to grow up in Colombia. It's super interesting and I'm intrigued.
Oh, thank you, Holly, for this opportunity. And I'm very excited about the success of Surf with Amigas podcast.
Thank you.
Congratulations. This is a beautiful space. Yes. And thank you so much for having me here.
Awesome. All right. That was awesome. I'm going to stop that there. I think we did great.